Huge victory for healthcare workers in the state of Illinois. This after the first settlement has been reached in a lawsuit filed over COVID-19 vaccine mandates. According to reports, Illinois healthcare workers who were fired or otherwise impacted by their hospital's vaccine mandate will receive a $10 million settlement. The settlement was approved by U.S. District Judge John Ness, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump. The judge sided with the claim that the mandate violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Now, over 470 employees of the system will become eligible for compensation, and anyone fired because of their refusal to get the jab will also be eligible for reemployment in the system. I'm sure this is first of many settlements to come like this. Criminal defense attorney Bob Bianchi joins me now with a legal perspective on all of this. Bob, I appreciate you joining me. I always love getting your insight as a lawyer. So this Illinois settlement, $10 million. Some people, I read, some plaintiffs will be eligible for $45,000 if they were fired because of the vaccine mandate for refusing to comply with the mandate. This, from what I've read, seems to be a good, and not only good, but just ruling. Your thoughts?
Yeah, let's put it into perspective. I've been saying this from the beginning, Addison. I thought it was kind of odd when this was all going down that people weren't concerned about the civil rights and Title VII, as you referred to, because these were employees who specifically said they did not want the jab or the vaccine because of religious reasons, and that the hospital made no accommodations with respect to their employment. They just had a blanket, irrespective of a sincere religious belief, you were fired if you didn't take the vaccine. Any decent lawyer, I mean, we all had to deal with this. Every employee, or I'm an employer, from the lowest levels all the way to some major institutions, that you have to be very, very careful when somebody's asserting a constitutional right, like a sincere belief that they don't religiously want to take it. These people argued, many of them, that because medical research was done with fetal tissue and so on and so forth, that they did not want to take the jab, but they gave them no accommodations whatsoever, and that is the basis of the settlement. So essentially what the hospital said was, look, we have all these people suing. I think they got good legal advice at that point in time and said, you're going to have a battle here, because while you have a right to limit for the safety, health, and welfare, you can do certain things, you still have to give accommodations to people who are either disabled or who are asserting a religious constitutional right, and you did none of that. So this was not surprising to me, Addison, and any other institution that did not. Again, you could validly have that policy, but if you did not accommodate people who either were ill or had some sort of medical condition or had a religious reason why they want to do it, you can expect pain as far as a lawsuit. Last point. And so they do a cost-benefit analysis. Essentially, the hospital says it's going to cost us so much money to litigate this, bad publicity, so on and so forth. Let's just settle the case and just get rid of it and just move on. And that's what I think happened here.
Now, Bob, tell me, because I'm interested. Obviously, religious exemption is one of the more commonly cited reasons for not getting the vaccine mandate. It's a pretty clear line in the sand that people can draw if they want to. And obviously, if you try to violate people's religious exemption, you might have to pay up for it. Are there any other legal avenues besides religious exemption where healthcare workers were maybe fired for other reasons and they could get compensation, or is there a legal case for any other violations for a vaccine mandate?
The only ones that I saw, Addison, and there could be more, but the only ones that I saw populating were the religious exemptions. And remember, it has to be a sincere religious objection. You just can't say there it's against my religion. And the other one were if you had a disability or a medical condition and you felt that that would compromise your system. Like I'm a person personally doesn't like putting anything, medicine, vaccines, whatever, into my body, but it's my choice to do that. But I'm not immunocompromised. I don't have a significant health condition. So there were instances in which workers have been saying, if you recall throughout this, that I just don't feel safe from a health perspective, and I think that this would compromise my health. And if you have a legitimate medical reason not to have taken it and you were forced, that's another class of people that I think could have a successful lawsuit.
Now, if you might remember back around January, President Biden scrapped, he basically abandoned his attempted OSHA lawsuit, or OSHA vaccine mandate, which would require companies that employ somewhere around, I think, over 100 people, 100 people or more, 80 people or more, the company had to mandate the vaccine. And there was a ton of pushback on this. A lot of companies said, no, we're just not going to go along with that. And Biden was using OSHA to try to ram that through. Could there be any lawsuits or any legal action taken against the administration, any further legal action for companies because some just went ahead and jumped the gun and said, okay, he's going to do this, so we're just going to mandate the vaccine. Could there be any legal recourse for that?
I mean, obviously, anybody can always file a lawsuit, and a lot of times, like I said, businesses will decide to settle them just because it's a cost-benefit analysis that they're doing. But we have to also keep in mind that our law from the Supreme Court for many, many pandemics and diseases in the past have made it very clear that the government has a compelling governmental interest, that's a constitutional law term, for the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Even at one point in time, Addison, believe it or not, I think it may have been with smallpox or polio, one of those two, probably smallpox, where they actually forced you. They literally, it wasn't like you're fired. They came to your door and they vaccinated you. And if you didn't get vaccinated, they put you in jail. And believe it or not, those things were upheld as a legitimate government interest to protect the safety, health, and welfare of the entire community. So when it comes to this OSHA mandate, I'm not really feeling it as far as a good lawsuit is concerned. But who knows? These are kind of novel territory. But the law with respect to what the government could do to mandate vaccines is pretty well settled. So in a large manner of these cases, I think people suing the government are going to lose.
Now, speaking of the government, I have to get to this and switch gears real quick, Bob. I want to talk about legal recourse in relation to the Trump FBI raid. I spoke with one of Trump's attorneys, Christina Bobb. She said she's looking forward to how this could play out in coming days, coming weeks, or months, as far as taking legal action in response to the FBI raiding Trump's home. You have Trump. First of all, they apparently stole Trump's passports. The DOJ took his passports. Trump called them out on that. And then they said, oops, sorry, and they returned them. They sent them back. But Trump is saying that he declassified these documents and that the FBI unjustly came to his house and broke down his door, went in, broke into his safe, and that this was I hold that it's a political act. I know we're talking more the legality of it, but does Trump have a point, and could he take legal action against the Department of Justice for this raid?
Let me just start off with general principles that have nothing to do with Donald Trump in terms of this, and having been a former prosecutor that executed and authorized many search warrants, and as a criminal defense lawyer now that has them against my clients. It is extremely difficult to file a lawsuit in any case against a governmental agency, whether it be local, state, or federal, that has a judicially approved search warrant, unless you can show that there was literal falsehoods and misrepresentations made in the affidavit in support of the search warrant. Of course, we don't have that affidavit. Yeah. We only have the search warrant and the evidence return. So the devil is in the details with this. When we get to President Trump, and I try to separate it because I think people may be shocked if they're upset about what's happening with President Trump. They should know that every day, every place, every time, every minute, probably in this country, similar things are happening with regard to affidavits, and they get a search warrant and they go in and you don't get the affidavit. That's supposed to protect the innocent until they're charged, as well as not to compromise an investigation. But whether you have a successful lawsuit against the federal government, I used to handle civil rights cases against governmental agencies that made mistakes in law enforcement. It is extremely difficult, both because you have the judicial magistrate that approved it, and you also have qualified immunity, which is kind of a legal protection in addition to just ordinary negligence that protects law enforcement officers in the executive branch from being sued by citizens. So I think we really have to take a deep breath with this and wait to see what's in that affidavit, which eventually we will see in all likelihood. And only then can a lawyer competently make a decision. Of course, again, getting back to the fact, falsehoods, misrepresentations, lies, things of that nature, a decent avenue to go forward. If it's your typical, look, we believe there's probable cause, the judge signs off on it, everything in that affidavit was at least relatively accurate, very, very difficult to sue.
Very interesting. Bob Bianchi from Law and Crime Network. Always a pleasure to have you on the program. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Addison.
Coming up next,